I guess I'll call us to order at 7:18. And I'll just let you all know that because Patrick isn't with us right now, we're going to postpone the executive session likely to another meeting. So we won't have that tonight. And then the other thing to let you know is that I got the answer to the question from board council about the consent agenda item, the policy for D7, and we are able to adopt it because the substance of the language didn't change. So we don't have to approve for posting. We can go ahead and adopt it in the consent agenda. So we're all set with that. I just wanted to check on that because there was some language change. All right, so we'll move on down to public comment. Is there anyone attending from the community that would like to make a public comment? All right, we'll move along. Okay, next is to approve the consent agenda, and we have some minutes, pay orders, the adoption of the D7 policy of resignation, and to approve the use of some special funds in Moncton. Is someone willing to make that motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Andrew.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Steve.
All right. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, give me a thumbs up or say aye, whatever you.
Aye.
5, 6, 7, 8. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so the motion carries. Okay. Moving down to executive limitations monitoring, to accept the monitoring report for policy 2.4, financial planning and budgeting. That was included in your packet.
I'll move that one, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. Is there a second?
Rob seconds.
All right, thank you, Rob. Any questions or discussions, items, comments? Rob?
Yeah, just a couple comments. I guess Patrick's not here. I should have filled out a worksheet, but I think Patrick, in the past 2 years since I've been on the board, has really tried to make that connection, linking the budget with our ends, our strategic plan, community engagement, and I'd like to see him continue to make those connections a little stronger. I mean, at the end of the day, how we spend our money, it's how we spend our time educating our kids. And a couple things like that just sort of popped into my mind during the annual meeting is, he talks about not filling five plus FTE positions for this coming year. In the report, it says impact of the budget on educational planning. It's like, I don't know what exactly those positions are, from what schools, just sort of maybe spell that out a little bit better. And then I was also thinking, since it's such a really big policy, considering our last meeting with our last action or directive, which really ties to the K-12 solutions, new solutions report. I guess it speaks to our ends, and we added the word ends into that directive. But just I would love to see Patrick continue to push how the budget building process really connects to our ends, but also then thinking about moving forward with what if cost-effective mindset via K-12, our strategic plan, our community values, because I really struggle as a board member to make those connections just by myself, seeing numbers on a page and then having a report somewhere else. So I just encourage them to continue to make those connections with those pieces of evidence.
Okay. And Steve?
Yeah, I think to Rob's point, one comment that I think I've made in the past about the superintendent's interpretations is if we go back to the brown dog training, one of the parts of the monitoring reports that they emphasize is the rationale. So in addition to having the interpretation, there's a rationale section that follows that gives examples, gives, makes these links that I think Rob is talking about. Why is how did they come up with this interpretation? And how do you link not only how do you link not your interpretation to your evidence? I feel like that's a piece of the monitoring reports that we could not only probably stand to improve on the superintendent's side, but on the board side as well.
All right. Any other comments? All right.
I'm not, Dawn, do you want me to speak a little bit to those attrition reductions?
Sure, if you would like to.
I know that 3 out of the 3.6 positions were all instructional coaches that we did not fill. All folks who took other jobs, 2 of them became principals and another one became a teacher in another district. We did not fill those positions. I believe, now Floyd, you may know faster than me, but I'm pretty confident that the 0.6 was in science teaching at Mount Abraham at the high school level. And then for the support staff positions, even though those weren't filled in the budget itself, we did actually end up hiring 2 more educational assistants using different funds, using ESSER dollars and Title I money for one of our schools. So that's what I can tell you about those positions.
All right, great, thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So I have 2 questions for you. Based on the information provided, does the board find that the superintendent's interpretation is reasonable? Yes. Or no? Okay, so I'm seeing, yep, yes. Does the board find that the data demonstrates the accomplishment of this interpretation? Yes. Or no? Yes. 1, 2, 4, 5. No. All right. All right. All those in favor of accepting the monitoring report for policy 2.4 financial planning and budgeting, please say aye. Or give me a thumbs up. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. That one passed. All right. Next is an update on the financial report, and that was linked in the agenda. Are there any questions? I assume Floyd would be the man to answer them. If you have any questions regarding the financial report. Steve.
Yeah, Floyd, I don't know if you want to take a minute and just explain the question that I asked you earlier today about the link between the fund balances in the monthly report and the audit.
Absolutely. So what Steve asked was, in the audit, there's a line, he was trying to find the number in our monthly operating statement that shows our fund balance that we carried forward in our audit. The number that we put in is a hard keyed number in our financial statement, and we didn't update it with a change from the auditors way back when. So it is carried forward different than what we had in the audit finalized since then. Next month, you'll see the catch. You know, the advantage of having a Steve Rooney on our team is details like that get caught. So thank you, Steve.
So Floyd, just to follow up, that audit number was used as the warned number.
Right. So the number So we're going to carry that difference, 16,000 forward, and depending on what the auditors, at this point, it'll offset taxes in that revenue side.
Right. You can't allocate it either way now.
Can't allocate it.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
And Floyd, you were mentioning where it's noted in the audit. It's called an unassigned
Correct.
balance on page 6.
Page 9.
Page 9.
In the table 3, for those of you looking at that right now.
Okay, there are no other questions? Oh, Rob.
Yeah, Floyd, question. With your little wrap up page, sort of down the PDF file, in the revenue section, 3203, which is sped. Let me pull it up so I can read it from my out loud. Sped extraordinary reimbursement. What exactly is the minimum expenditure threshold? I mean, I sort of assume what those words mean, but is there a minimum you have to spend, be reimbursed?
Until you get over that $65,000 number, it's to that limit, we're reimbursed at 54%. Once we exceed that, then we start to see that 95% reimbursement for extraordinary expense per child. So early in the year, we haven't exceeded that threshold yet. So we're not seeing that 95% reimbursement structure that we do as we finish out the year. So your income structure is stronger later. It's just, does that make sense? Okay.
Okay, any other questions about the financial report? All right, I'll keep moving along. Next, under board management and governance is an action item to accept the monitoring report for policy 3.3 delegation to the superintendent. Is there a motion to accept that monitoring report?
I'll
move,
move it, Andrew.
and I'll second it, Sandy.
Okay. Any discussion? Questions or comments?
This is 3.3, Dawn, just
Yes.
one sure, right?
3.3.
No, I appreciated the report. I thought it was very helpful. A part where there was compliance and also indications of where the board could do more work on partial compliance, and really trying to break down those definable actionable sublevels. I think that was useful commentary of work that the board could do.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Steve?
Yeah, actually, I thought that was a point that came up in not only this report, but I think in a couple of the others, was having either the policy governance committee, if it's formed, work on more narrowly defining what compliance of the ends policy might be, at a more granular level than sort of the overarching goals that we note that I'm not sure any human can attain, but we would at least have some more granular detail that would allow for more closely monitoring progress from year to year with maybe some more easily measured benchmarks.
I would just remind the board, part of that conversation, at least from my lens, is a heavier reliance on the strategic plan measurable targets to help achieve those more aspirational goals, and how we can create an interpretation that can start speaking and directing us back to that guiding document.
And Rob,
Yeah, just to the sort of the conversation, this isn't about the specific report. Two things. I was wondering if we could have year over year the link to the previous year's report with the current report that's submitted. Trying to track down last year's 3.3. I came across 3 or 4 different agendas. It was supposed to be in February and we didn't get to it till April. I don't know, just one less step a volunteer has to spend time trying to shift down or figure out. And then I'm just curious, big picture question, if our monitoring reports are any good in regards to like other boards that operate with policy governance, like how do we know this is a good standard, I guess, of reporting? You know, all the reports come in a little bit differently formatted, and sometimes it's we interpret versus I interpret. And I'm just curious. I have no idea. This is the only lens I've ever seen policy governance being used, and I just hope that they're useful. I think they are a useful tool for board members to go through. But I'm just curious if there's any training that we could go through on making sure that we're writing really good monitoring reports, because those are on the ballot being warned as something that the voters have to accept, I guess. So that's just a commentary and question.
okay, thanks. Steve?
Yeah, I think this is just a comment going back to Rob's difficulty in finding things. I don't know, Don, I think I'd sent around a reorganization of the tree that you can look in on the drive to try to find things. And this is maybe getting too off track, but I think that might be helpful if we could bring that up at some point.
Well, that's a good topic, and it's in the plan for the reorganization meeting. If we can,
Okay.
we can
Sure.
all get on Google Drive, and that would be a great way to do it. It would be nice if we
Okay.
could all be in person and do it together, you know, all at the same time, instead of people trying to watch the screen and be on the drive. But
Yeah.
okay. So, but as far as 3.3, I want to bring you, does anyone have any other comments about 3.3 specifically? Okay, then based on the information provided, does the board find that the board's interpretation is reasonable? Yes? Okay, any no's? All right. Okay, does the board find that the data demonstrates accomplishment of this interpretation? Yes? Okay, any no's? All right. So all those in favor of accepting the monitoring report for policy 3.3 delegation to the superintendent, please say aye or put a thumb up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. The next monitoring report is 4.2, and I'm going to ask for a motion to table that because the author is not here to answer any questions or comments, or so if somebody'd like to make a motion to table that till the author returns, we can take it up at another time.
I so move, Sandy Lee.
All right.
I'll second Andrew.
All right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of tabling this till the author returns to a meeting, please give a thumbs up for if you're in favor of that. Any opposed?
Don,
Yes.
Brad is up for re-election. He's
Yes.
running unopposed, but just putting that out there. He might not be back.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'd have to invite him back. All right. And I don't think there were any abstentions. All right, so that one's tabled until another day. All right, the next one is an action item to accept the monitoring report for 4.3 agenda planning.
So move, Steve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second Andrew.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Any questions or comments? Okay. Steve?
Dave, I thought the report was very good. I had one question about you report partial compliance on one topic, and I was racing to try to find it here. Then I had trouble finding what was, I found it seemed as though you were describing what was compliant, but I didn't quite see what was non-compliant to make it partial. And now I'm struggling to find which of these I'm talking about.
I'll try to pull it up.
Now I'm wondering if I was smoking something.
In several instances, I found partial compliance. I
Right.
guess I would say in general, at the beginning of the year, agenda planning was pretty opaque. And, through the course of the year, I felt there were significant improvements on how agenda planning went. And I tried to reflect that in the report.
So I think what I'm talking about, Dave, is on page 2. The 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph down. You said it seems a never-ending struggle to get community engagement unless there is a crisis. It seemed as though you were talking about things that did seem to go okay, but I wasn't quite sure where I could find both what you thought was non-compliant and what you were suggesting as a method to come into compliance.
I can't find.
Well, there's no page numbers, so you just have
No.
to. It's,
Is this,
it's the,
can
it's the
you do a
second
number?
page. It's the second page.
Yeah.
It's the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph.
1, 2, 3, 4. A board member may recommend or request an item for board discussion. That's what I get.
No. The 4th I get is I report partial compliance, the paragraph just above that.
Oh.
The engagement of a consultant to help evaluate the various proposals was a strong action.
So 2B,
Yes, I see. Evaluate the various proposals was a strong action to help determine the future of MAUSD education. Also, vigorous public input and small group discussions held as a part of board meetings was useful. Certainly efforts such as the recent use of the thought exchange support the efforts to bring the community feedback. It seems a never-ending struggle. That's a paragraph you're wondering about?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I obviously the work is always sort of semi-imperfect and an ongoing process, but I couldn't quite find you know, in the other locations, you're giving, you know, a fairly specific critique and some suggestions for what might be done. Here I was just struggling with that.
Well, I think this is exactly to the point I was making, that, you know, I thought, you know, at the beginning of the year, it was difficult, and we did some things during the year. So I don't know whether that, I don't quite understand what partial compliance means, except that, you know, I saw improvement during the course of the year. The consultant helped, the thought exchange helped, the small group process helped. So I think that those were good things. Zoom gets in the way. And so that's what I was trying to reflect, is that that we saw significant improvement during the course of the year in terms of involving the public and setting the agenda.
Okay.
And Rob?
Yeah, in regards to agenda planning, I mean, I've really appreciated included in the agenda. I guess this might fall under agenda planning, are your chair notes that you've put forward, Dawn. I also really appreciated the opportunity to sort of have a I guess doodle poll or Google form regarding, you know, big ticket items that we had all talked about at multiple points, and trying to raise that to end up on the agenda. I wonder if the board's ever considered, you know, it's great to have preparation. Sorry, it's great to plan agendas and future agendas, but also to be prepared for what is in said agenda for said meeting. I think this is one area. I don't think I'm the only person who feels this way. Where I think sometimes we could have better preparation for the actual items that are on the agenda, and I don't know if we need to formally put that into a policy, but there are times where we're presented information at the meeting of said agenda, and then asked to have an action item on said information, and I just don't think that's good policy. That's not good preparation, and so I would hope maybe we consider adding agenda preparation, where if we don't get materials, you know, 24 hours before you know, a warned agenda, that we won't act on that information that is provided at a meeting. So that's just something I've been chewing on.
Krista?
Yeah, to that point, I'm wondering, and I don't know if how you would articulate this here, but I think it might be that we get materials right before a meeting, but we recognize that we might need to come back to another meeting. Like we have a preliminary conversation, but it's a big topic and we have to come back to it. And so recognizing that we have to balance urgency with the need to have adequate deliberation as a group, I think is also important. Just another thought was if we could link back to the community engagement piece, you know, maybe this policy should also, or this monitoring report should also link to the community engagement committee charge, and in that charge, I think, is the idea that we would develop a plan for engagement. That varies on formality depending on how organized we are as a group. But that's the goal, is that we have a pretty deliberate plan laid out. So we could maybe add that there.
Steve?
Yeah, and I think Dave might have mentioned this too. When you look at the board work plan right now, aside from kind of what we yearly have to deal with, it's a little difficult to see, you know, if there's a scattering of these topics like the one I just brought up about looking at the, you know, looking at the Google structure. I click down on the parking lot tab at the bottom, which might be a place where you might see kind of these topics just sort of listed, even though we haven't assigned them to a particular agenda, that they're the ones that we're considering to put on the agenda, to kind of see what the workload looks like outside of just the monitoring reports that we have to do and the sort of normal housekeeping projects that we have to take care of. What's on that kind of larger radar of topics that we keep knowing we're either going to have to get to or push down the road? It might be helpful to just throw those as a list in that parking lot tab that's on the work plan. When I go there, I don't see anything there at the moment.
Krista.
Something else under the planning of the actual items on the agenda that I wanted to note is that I think, I don't know when we started working closely together to develop the agendas, John and I, but one thing that we've talked about and done a couple of times is inviting other board members to help plan a discussion around a particular agenda item. And so that could be a suggestion for getting more into compliance, or I'm not sure how this works in terms of the monitoring report, but a suggestion could be that we continue to explore ways to involve more board members in the development and execution of our work.
All right, any more comments? All right. Based on the information provided, does the board find that the board's interpretation is reasonable? Yes or no? So yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, 7. No's. Okay. Does the board find that the data demonstrates the accomplishment of this interpretation? Yes or no? Okay, all right. All those in favor of approving the monitoring report for 4.3 agenda planning, please give a thumbs up or say aye. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 8. And Kevin, is that a nay or?
I'm going to abstain. I have some mixed feelings, but I really can't put my finger on them at the moment.
Okay. That was 2, 3, 8. 8 in favor and 1 abstention. All right, so that one passes. And next is an action item to approve the FY21 audit.
So move, Steve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second Andrew.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Okay, any questions? Comments? Floyd, it had no deficiencies noted. That's a good thing.
Always a good thing where you guys are sitting, and an even better one where I'm sitting. So.
That last page should be tacked on to the questionnaire, Floyd.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. I'm not seeing anybody with a burning question. So all those in favor of approving the FY21 audit, please signify by giving a thumbs up for yeah if you're in favor. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that no one's no no's and no abstentions with 9. So pass unanimously with 9. Okay. The next item is a discussion item around some reflection on the staff linkage discussion, communication, and possible next steps. So I don't know if anybody had some thoughts they wanted to share. Krista.
Yeah, sorry, I just a little more context. So we had talked about getting some members of this board together to connect with some of the staff folks on planning for moving this work forward, but we realized we hadn't had a chance within this group to just talk about how we thought it went, what our goals might be as a board, any concerns we have, anything in particular that we want that sub planning group to be thinking about before we move forward. So that was why we put this on the agenda, and we yeah, just look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Sandy.
I thought the exercise that we did with, I already forget the name of what it's called when you do the breakout rooms. Oh my goodness, must be late. But the way that we broke into the different groups, had mixed discussions between staff and the board, as well as having the public involved. I thought all of that was a really excellent exercise. And I would just move forward with a lot of what we discussed about what we thought would be a positive moving forward, the plan that we had discussed at the end. I'm all for you going forward and putting that together.
Anyone else? Erin.
So I thought I agree that it went really well for the part I was in, and it yielded some really good perspectives from the staff members, and I think we should do that as much as we can. I'm just wondering, with this information, what's our role with it, and is it just so that we're having giving teachers a voice to have communications and then that kind of thing, or are we having a more active role with the information that we do get?
I don't know. I think that will, how we use that will be determined when we meet and talk about, as we have more conversation about our roles and their roles, and because they expressed an interest in that as well. So I think that probably will be fine, or we'll figure that out as we have more dialogue. I don't know, Krista, if you had thoughts.
Well, I mean, I think that your question, Erin, is a really good one, and it's important for us to determine in what capacity are we receiving feedback from folks, and to be clear about what our roles and responsibilities are as board members. So getting feedback from our constituents is really important perspective for us to have. But how we see that information and what we use it for, I think, is a part of the conversation. It's something that we all need to be pretty clear on.
Rob?
Yeah, I really enjoyed my conversation. I mean, not having a kid in the district yet, or having gone through the district, getting to meet teachers from schools I've actually haven't had a chance to visit. It to me, part of it screams that, back to what Steve did and early on in unified district, and thinking about, community council or school advisory council. I see where it seemed like there'd be a great avenue there for some faculty, staff, students from each school to, at least that's more of a formal piece. I really appreciate the informal piece of it. It's just a, another way to engage with our community and get input. I don't know if we should put ourselves under pressure of having to always do something with what we hear back from. If it gets in the way of how this board governs in regards to policy governance. So I do think, like, I agree with Krista that we have to have some guidelines, but at the same time, I'd hate to put such stringent guidelines that we couldn't just have more informal gatherings with to hear from our educators who I don't always see on the streets, every other day. So that was my two pieces. I think the informal, I really appreciated it, and it just harkened back to this idea of the school community council, advisory councils from different schools too.
Steve, and then Aaron.
Yeah, to Rob's point, it's something else that I think I heard in the session that I was in, was that folks really just wanted a chance to be able to have a conversation and not necessarily expect that there was going to be some kind of direct result of that, with immediate feedback and immediate action items being generated from it, but to just be able to have a dialogue and not have it be, bounded by the lack of dialogue that we can have, say, in our public comment sessions during board meetings, that it would be a much more free flowing kind of touch base for people to just kind of, for lack of a better word, vent a little bit, kind of get whatever's on their chest off, and bring up good ideas that have worked other places they were wondering about, or things they don't see as working too well. Just a kind of an open forum. And I'd love to see it kind of work that way, and not necessarily put a lot of restrictions on the dialogue, but also have some guardrails about what the expectations are going to be for what comes out of it, because I think we do have to mind, how we're interacting with our chain of command here. So,
Aaron.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily thinking like we were gonna structure it and only talk about certain subjects. I certainly want there to be that open dialogue and things. I just, like Chris has sort of said, with open dialogue and with venting and with having a place to put that and having a seat at the table, sometimes there are things that come up that may require action or may come up at a inopportune moment for everybody involved and create something. I do want teachers' perspectives, and I want all staff perspectives. I think that's really important and has been missing for a long time. But I just think it's really important to also be clear about what we're expecting or what they expect from us as far as what information is gathered and received and what our duties are with information. And then just leave it at that. It doesn't have to have any other guardrails except for, like you said, Steve, we can't like skip people in processes and things like that. I just don't want that to become a thing, as open dialogue and venting can sometimes do.
Liz, and then Andrew.
This is, in terms of upcoming things, we have the Nate Levison report. We have merger study committee items. I would love to hear what people think about that. And when I think about the experience that we had, it reminds me of, should we be connecting with the PTOs? Like maybe, because there's a PTO at every school to the best of my knowledge, or something similar. Should we be going to, should we be committing as board members to say, hey, each of us is going to go to a PTO meeting at our school? So even if we're not a parent, can we, I think they'd accept us. And then we can get involved that way and start thinking about the schools. Those are organizations that already exist. And I think it's important sometimes to take advantage of what's already there. So maybe that's something that we could just think about getting involved in.
Liz. Andrew.
I thought the discussions were really helpful, and it was, I remember in particular, and there was some interest in understanding more about the difference between governance and day-to-day operations, because I think that's muddy for folks. It's sometimes muddy for us. I think sometimes it's pinned on policy governance, and I don't think it's about policy governance specifically. I think sometimes people just have a hard time with the area between where day-to-day operations and governance of the organization start to overlap a little bit. So I think that might be a good place to have a conversation. I also agree that it should be a bit open-ended. I'm wondering if there was a way in which we could, from those sticky things, the thought exchange, is that what that was called?
Jamboards.
Jamboards, yeah, not the thought exchange, the Jamboards. But basically just maybe a doodle poll for whoever gets on that committee to sort of rank order what they'd like to at least get started with for a conversation opener. And then the committee itself could then take it from there.
Okay. So what, because of what the advice board council gave, it's not like this group can start to have a discussion about the topics in that what they can do is plan, you know, when it can start or get sort of rolling. They can't really make decisions on the topics. Krista, do you want to add something?
Yeah, sorry, I think there's background noise for a minute here, so I hope it's not too annoying. But I think we can, I think that looking at the Jamboard feedback is a really good idea, Andrew. And then I also heard from Liz, merger study committee and Levinson report are two other things we as a board might really appreciate this, using this opportunity to get feedback on. So I think anything else along those lines that this group, I know staff had some ideas of things they would like to talk about, but if our board, you know, because as Liz said, you know, in the community engagement committee, we're all about connecting with a broad range of all of our constituents. And so this is a good opportunity to pose some of these questions. So if there are other topics folks can think of, you know, now or before a planning group gets together, that would be helpful to know. And as Don said, we're a little, we won't be doing the work. We'll be making a plan for how to bring this to our groups to have the conversations. Yeah, that's all.
Steve?
Yeah, just thinking back, Kevin, to some thoughts you expressed in those meetings about looking strategically, you know, talking about strategic things. And we talked about a couple of them already, but just what are the teachers' feelings about the current ends report and how kids are doing, and also how they feel they're involved or not, or how the strategic plan is being implemented, and any thoughts they might have on that as well.
Andrew, is that your hand again? Or is that from before?
That's from before. I'll take it down.
Okay. Okay. I think there's a starting point. Oh, Krista, go ahead.
Sorry, just two other comments. One, I'm excited about this opportunity. I really enjoy being in the negotiations committee and how we can work together to find some shared interests, and we work through some of the bumpy parts together. I think we should look at this as with curiosity, like, oh, that's interesting to learn more about. And also something that that I think came up in our small group conversation is thinking who else should be at the table. So my hope is that it wouldn't just be the folks that we connected with the last when we did this in a couple of weeks ago, but it would be, you know, interesting to get perspective from a variety of different people. within the organization.
Okay, and Kevin.
So I have, I understand the importance. I do have some concerns about implementation. As Steve had mentioned, and I was talked about it quite a bit in our little small group, is we as a board have a whole different concept of the process or the implementation or how the administration is working than they do. There's, you know, at least two levels of management between them and us, maybe three, I don't know. And I'm concerned, and I don't want to shut this out, but I'm concerned that these just don't become big complaint sessions that are really non-constructive and gets the board all in a spin, as opposed to something that could be corralled and structured to work towards the greater good, if you will. And if we can be successful with that, as Krista and a few others have indicated, you know, it's just another perspective of our, you know, people that we have a stake in the game, if you will. So if we can manage that aspect of it and just not go down a rabbit hole, I think there could be a lot of benefit.
Okay, anyone else? All right. The agenda, there we go. Okay. The next item is another discussion around meeting mechanics. Some of this was Krista and I discussed sort of in preparation for the reorganization meeting. The next time when the board will be together, we'll be at that reorganization meeting. And so we wanted to have a conversation and wanted everybody to consider, how do we want to work as a board moving forward? Krista, I don't know if you want to add any more.
Yeah, so it's been for everybody a really hard 2 years. And I think I'm of the opinion that if we want to make board service sustainable, we need to figure out if how we've been doing it for the past however many years makes sense, or if there are ways to ensure that we can all be sharing the load. And so specifically for me, I think I've really appreciated that Dawn has been open and willing to allowing me to work together with her on planning the agenda, for example. And I think on this board, we all have so many different skills and experiences and can apply those in things that really, in ways that really would be helpful to the group and might supplement ways that might be less of a skill for somebody else. And so I just, you know, we have sort of a structure of officers, but I think it's important for us to talk about, you know, what each of those roles really entails, and are we implementing the work of those roles? Like the board chair role is huge. It's enormous. It requires a level of detail that's pretty significant, and it's hard to do alone. And so just in general, as we think about going into reorganization and how we work as a board, I just like us to brainstorm how we might work better together, whether it's how we plan agendas or folks taking on the leadership of a conversation that we have, or a discussion item that they might feel more comfortable with. You know, it shouldn't just be one person's responsibility or burden to plan all the work that we do. And I think that some of us are really skilled at some aspects of that, and some of us might be skilled at other aspects of that. So I don't know, I feel like I'm not being very clear, but I hope you get the general idea of what I'm saying, which is this has been hard for all of us. I think we all are really, committed and talented folks, and I'd like to see us find a way to continue to be more effective, to sort of evaluate our processes and think about how we can continue to be really effective moving forward. Because we may not have COVID, but the work will probably continue to be difficult.
Kevin? Oh. Kevin, you're still muted. There you go.
Yeah, I'm slow. So one of the things in Dave Sharp's monitoring report is he talked about an executive committee, and we probably do have one informally, but I would think that would be a great thing to formalize this next go around, and I don't know if that would remove work, but at least Don and Krista and Liz as the clerk, or maybe there's at-large members, or some format to implement that. I think it would be a great start. I think being the chair is being the chair. There's a lot that goes with that position. I have found that out because I have taken on being a chair of the planning commission in Bristol here for the last year, and and it's nowhere near as complex as what we're going through on this board, but it takes a lot of time, and I'm not overly concerned with agenda planning. I mean, another thing Dave poked at was the master plan, if you will, and looking at the way that Tracy does her master plan, it's updated every month with a little bit of yellow if something changes and whatnot. And there's probably a tweak there that could be implemented, but we don't want to get so rigid with that we can't have the discussions that come up through the year either. So I think it's important to have an executive committee to maybe help determining that agenda planning. But I think I don't think we can wag the dog by the tail either, because there's a lot of stuff that's just driven on it. I don't know. My personal feeling is the request by board members for something to get on the agenda is so tight anyway. And even if you can develop a strategy that it is board business, it's like not up there in priority, if you will, with everything else that's going on. So I'm not sure that that's the solution either. But and I'm kind of mixed as to whether we should go to various discipline subcommittees. There are other groups that do it, and that's being discussed or has been discussed. Concerning, obviously you get a focus point, you get people that want to work on that, but you also get fairly fragmented, and all of a sudden there's a lot of stuff going on that that group may be privileged with because they do that work, but they how it's communicated back out to the whole board for action, and then all of a sudden the whole board may want to reinvent the wheel, if you will, on a particular activity. So I'm not so concerned about that, I don't think, but I'm not opposed to it either. But I think an executive committee would be a great correction or a great way to step off the new year with.
Sandy?
Thanks, Don. I was thinking along the same lines, Kevin. The idea of the same that's been discussed about executive committee. And it's interesting because I was trying to think of who again would comprise that committee to help share the load. I was thinking about how it used to be before we were a unified district, and each of the schools chairs, like all the chairs would meet and be able to share, what's going on, but then they also have people who are carrying that load who can bounce ideas. And so you had that resource, you know, for them in terms of where are we going. And that way our sort of our board leadership isn't isolated. Like I want them to be supported. So, you know, I think about, you know, the difficulties. I agree with committee structure, but, you know, every committee has a chair. So you have Krista, who's the chair of the, you know, community engagement committee. I was thinking if we did form, you know, a finance committee or a policy governance, with the chairs of maybe limited committees be part of maybe this executive committee, because they're the ones who are taking on the load of running those meetings, pulling together all that information, and then being able to share it, you know, at a higher level in that executive meeting. And so then they can work around that. And then, you know, we're all each responsible as board members to know what's going on. But, you know, there's only really so many subjects we can all have our hands in if we start. And I don't have a problem with delegating some of the deeper work and then hearing those reports out. And then allowing others to jump in or get deeper, or to join in any of those committee meetings when they're happening, to get a better, you know, understanding. Because everyone, if they wanted to, could participate in every, you know, meeting, you know, because they're all open meetings. So to hear what's happening. But it allows people to focus deeper and then bring that back to the executive committee with more deeper understanding, and then being able to explain it to the rest of the board when it comes back into our bigger meetings. So I just think that's a great way of delegating that responsibility. And then it also is a better way of sharing, I think, information where we all feel like we're getting a deeper understanding.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Rob.
Yeah, I agree with what Sandy was saying. I think we could really leverage our strengths with a more of a committee structure. You know, case in point, like Steve pointed out, what, $16,000 difference. That's awesome, and it seems like someone that, you know, Dave Sharp has brought it up again and again. A finance committee. I think we could even have you know, the policy governance, you know, in the guise of just even professional learning and development for an entire board, to get better as we operate. You know, and like Sandy said, they're public meetings, so anyone can hop on or hop off. And then, you know, I really support the idea of an executive committee. I think, Don, what you've had to take on individually isn't by any means fair, and I don't even know if it's in the job description when I look at the policy of board chair. I wonder if the idea of even co-chairs for our board, I know other districts do it, or at least some way to better support you, or the chair, whoever that may be, in their role in that. And I don't know if that's a co-chair or if that's an executive committee, but something to take some other parts of what that chair role has to do, maybe off of them, whether it's responding to community emails, or, you know, solely doing this or solely doing that. I think that there's great opportunity as this work probably doesn't get any easier, as we can all probably attest to, especially when school boards are sort of the pinpoint of where folks think they can, you know, shout at those folks that are elected leaders. I know for most of us, if not all of us, that we feel that on our backs, and we've had for the past 2 years. And so any way that we can leverage our strengths, whether that be through committee structure, and maybe it's not, I think it would be, moving forward would be really wise. My engagement on the community engagement committee has not been to the level I've wanted to this past year, but every time I sit in on that committee, it's just really refreshing. It feels like I'm doing, to me personally, tangible work, where sometimes in this meeting our board meetings, I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm doing anything for anybody, in all honesty. And so I think having that conversation we will have new board members and a different makeup, I think would possibly help share the load and for us to also meet needs of our constituents and our students better.
Thank you. Liz?
Yeah, as long as we're intentional about it not being just another added meeting, right? So we don't want to just say, okay, we're going to have this and it's going to be another meeting and it's going to be a mini meeting of our big meeting, right? So we, I think, want to be, and maybe this is the place, because we've had plenty of conversations about whether the community, the committees that we were thinking about making, whether they would be school-based or whether they would be topic-based. And I think it's been really successful having the community engagement committee, having members from the community that were really interested in the topic and really wanted to focus on that with us and have some deeper conversations. So maybe this is the place where we tie in community involvement and direct conversations with the boards. And it could be just the topics of whatever it may be that they're interested in. That's the committee they join.
Right, Steve?
Yeah, I think that is an awesome idea. Primarily because I know almost everybody on this board is maxed out. You know, everybody's got way too much to do. The Career Center board is taking up an amazing amount of my time. And I'm negotiating on that committee and I'm negotiating on this committee. So I'm trying to think about what other committee I'm going to want to get on without my wife slitting my throat. And I'm sure that's just, you know, everybody's in that boat. I'm not the only one. So, you know, having somebody sort of be the head of a committee who maybe is really just corralling some other experts that we gather from the community or other interested parties and so you even taking on the committee role doesn't necessarily mean you're doing all the lifting. Just trying to figure out how you actually execute more meetings in people's times, because that's what a committee means. A committee means you're going to have another meeting and you're going to add it to your schedule. And I think that's what people's hesitations have been for doing any committees, is that they just know that's another meeting. That's another night of the week I'm not going to spend with my family or get projects done that I got to get done or whatever. So that's the struggle. And it's maybe one of the flaws of the consolidation as well. I'm sure people would point to that, you know, we've got such a big district and a small group of folks here, even though it's a big board, it's still a small group of folks that are trying to struggle with all these issues. And I think being able to broaden it out with subcommittees that are allowed to pull in non-board members is a great way to spread out some of that load.
Thank you. Sandy?
Thank you, Don. Earlier, someone had talked about school advisory councils, and I was forgetting that was the term that was referring to the presentation that Steve and Nancy Cornell did back on, you know, October 26th. And this is just putting an idea out there for what an executive committee would be. But, you know, when we became a unified district, I always remember when I went off the board thinking, boy, how are they going to incorporate everything that happens in each of the schools in a way where all those important points are come together for our unified district, you know, meetings, where we're really supposed to be dealing with all the schools and the high school and the middle school. And, you know, if we do move in that direction of school advisory councils, you know, should a representative of each, you know, town sort of lead that school advisory council in each community and then maybe make up, I'm just putting out ideas. I mean, I know, but, and would that be something where they're on an executive committee where they can really help the chair with what's going on, keeping a finger on the pulse of everything that's going on in the schools? And, would that involve superintendent involvement and building principal and the representative having their own little mini sort of advisory council, and then being able to, report that back, so that the whole board then gets information about what's going on everywhere. I don't know if that'll work. I'm just putting that out there because I want to follow up with the school advisory council bit, because I just don't know how we're ever going to really know what's happening in our schools unless we really have board involvement at some level. But I realize that might be too much, but just putting it out there.
Okay, thank you. And Aaron.
I'm wondering if, I know that we're all sort of burnt out and we're all on too many committees and have too many meetings, and I'm wondering if it's possible to merge ideas of having a committee or a council with the way, what we had been talking about with the way we're going to build agendas, or having a different idea about how we do that. And perhaps we have a rotating schedule of, we have the community engagement committee who reports out on certain days, and then, or meeting times, and then we have a finance report out or a behavior report out, whatever. And then there's somebody responsible for just taking notes and tracking down the follow-up to whatever was presented, and then reporting on the follow-up. It could just be like a revolving door of whoever is responsible for that meeting, for that particular discussion point. And then, we can have an open board discussion about that all together, instead of having to create other systems of doing that. And then it's just sort of like a one-off rotating responsibility. I don't know, another just idea.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Krista.
I was just wondering if we want to see if anybody has any last thoughts, and then maybe we can, this is really good brainstorming, and give folks a chance to kind of chew on this, so that when we meet in our reorg meeting, we can try to see if what we might want to, take a poll on what seems most valuable. And also, I'm glad your hand's up, Andrew, because I was going to see if we could, as a departing board member, if we could get you to share your departing thoughts on this very topic, because I bet you might have some.
Andrew.
Yeah, so I think I would really support the idea of committee work, a finance committee, to look over the financials. So, because I know that in the conversation, I think we're always sort of looking at, for me, I'll just speak for myself. I'm looking at the financials and going, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be looking here for. I think there's some folks on the board who have that specialty or expertise. And it would be nice to know on the board that a couple people have looked at it in depth and they have given the thumbs up. Doesn't mean that we have abandoned our responsibility to look at it also, but we know that someone's given it a deep pass. I also think the same thing for a policy governance committee, that someone who's looked through all the policies, made sure they seem to make sense for our current setup with MAUSD versus before we were unified. A committee that's helped. It can be a resource when people are writing monitoring reports, because if you're a new board member and then all of a sudden you signed up for a monitoring report and you look at it, you're like, what the hell is this? And what did I just sign myself up for? So the policy governance committee has really sort of done a lot of the work about, well, here you can monitor this way, you can monitor this way, you can monitor this way. Here's what might be available to you. Here's what might make sense given our current context. Let us know if you need help. That sort of could be a go-to for people writing reports. And then the executive committee too. But there certainly is a need to sort of spread that out. I hope that in the committee process, that it would, even though it would be more committees, it would make the work faster, especially in the main board meeting. because we've got some thumbs up from people on the finance committee. We moved through the policy governance committees, looked at the monitoring reports, we got thumbs up on those. And it might make it more efficient, I hope, in the May meeting. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay. That's a lot to chew on. All right. So let's move on to our last discussion item, the merger study committee. And like I said in my note, sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. In the last meeting, we talked about there seemed to be a theme about a possible message or comment to the merger study committee. And from my recollection, I think the most pressing issue was the articles of agreement and the protecting the town's right to vote on a school closure. And I just, not that we have to discuss it out and know it all how to do it now. This is more of a brief discussion that may prepare us for a future agenda item that would allow us to have it on the agenda in the future and actually prepare something for the board to consider, because sometimes it's easier to respond to something than to create it in the moment. So just we were considering taking a straw poll and seeing if we're all in agreement that was the most pressing issue that we thought we should start with to the mergers, if we're going to make a statement to the merger study committee. Krista, did I miss anything?
Yeah, I guess just to follow up on that, I know a couple of folks have asked to have a bigger conversation at the board table about the work of the merger study committee. And there's lots of components of that work. And we should talk about all of them. But it also seems like there's like Don said, a prioritization that we might want to put on that question about the town sustaining their right to vote before a closure. And so we'd like to get to drafting a recommendation as a board that we can share with the merger study committee, but we imagine that conversation might take several meetings to get to language that we all agree on that includes all the things we want to include, that's ready to go to that group if that's how we decide to proceed. But in the more immediate term, we thought it would be a good idea to see if we can't come to some feeling among the group about that initial component.
Thanks. Steve?
I'm just curious if we might want to hold off just until we actually get the merger study committee members here at a meeting. Well, neither Brad or Sarah are here. Just to get their thoughts on it since they're on the committee.
Okay, Dave?
Thank you. So I think if that committee is so foolish to think that they can form a unified district that doesn't give towns a right to vote if their school is going to close, so be it. Let them go that way, let the vote go down. To me, the most important thing is that they, I thought our board discussion was open to, in fact, encouraged possible collaboration with Virgins on a level other than creating a unified district. Other levels of collaboration, maybe at the central office, as the Nate Levinson referred to. I don't know what the possibilities are there. As we could do academics similar to the way we do tech center, where core instruction happens and then busing occurs. So to me, the fact that that committee has refused to consider anything but a unified district is problematic.
Okay, thank you. Sandy?
Boy, I've been rolling around just sort of the interplay between our board and the merger study committee for some time. And I agree with Steve. We only have two of our members. We have Kevin and we have David who are on the merger study committee. We don't have Sarah or Brad. Did I get all four guys?
Mhm.
Correct? There's four, right? And I guess I part of it is I don't understand the mechanics. It was like a mechanics issue. So are our board member, like the board representatives who are on the merger study committee, I was wondering if we could, and I put this out to you guys, get reports back like we would from any committee. Like, I don't go to every meeting, but I would love to hear like a report from someone about what was talked about, what took place, how does it affect our district? I was wondering if that could be something included, if that's appropriate, just putting it out there. Because it also would keep me up to date on, I should be paying closer attention. I need to be, watching, more of the merger study meetings to see, because it's totally affecting us potentially. And then the other is, do we as a board, what is our role? And do we have one in assisting our board members or directing our board members on the merger study committee? Or is each member of our board on the merger study committee just a voting member on that committee, not connected to the board? So I didn't know. I mean, I really literally was like, I just don't know how that works together. And I imagine it'd be kind of challenging being on the merger study committee, but also being an MAUSD board member, because that's sort of because that's how you're not on as a separate just citizen, you're on as because you're an MAUSD board member, I think. So I don't know if maybe Kevin or Dave, if you guys could help with that, because then it gets me in the mindset of what do we do as a board together in terms of messaging that we want to the merger study committee. I'm kind of looking at Kevin, so I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Like, actually, Kevin next in the lineup, so we can let him go and see.
So my understanding is we have 4 board members on representing MAUSD. The statute only requires 1 board member. So we chose to do that as we assign people. My other understanding also is that the people that are assigned to this merger study committee are to operate at arm's length from either school board. And that doesn't mean to say that particular school board members that happen to be on that thing don't have a perspective that may or may not align with the school board. The school boards, where they become effective is once the articles are completed, should there be a motion or an acceptance to merge, they review those and give back comment. And obviously they can not politicize their comment, but make their comment in such a way that their constituents may understand better the pros and cons, if you will. I think hopefully that helps you, Sandy.
When you said it goes back, are you saying it goes back to our board for comment, like the whole MAUSD board for comment?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So the finalized articles, should they be put forward, will go back to each board for review and comment, but it's not, and comment is obviously not binding, if you will. But with given that comment, the board's comments obviously will make a statement to the constituents in either district, you know. So that's how that all works. And then obviously it is a vote of 2 districts.
right, and each district has its own separate vote, like as a whole district. Is that how
Right.
it breaks down?
My understanding would be the whole district.
So all of the Addison Northwest and then all of MAUSD, but separate. And
Correct,
if one or the other doesn't make it, then it doesn't pass.
correct.
Do you see a role for our board ahead of that process?
Well, the hot button obviously is a school closure thing.
Right.
It has been brought up. The board is very aware of it. Our facilitator has avoided discussing it because from her point of view, and I think probably she is probably proper in strategizing this way, is she wants to get a framework, if you will, of at least all the nuts and bolts to put together for some articles in agreement, and then go to probably in a meeting or two or maybe three, go to some of the more controversial issues such as operating schools, and transportation comes up quite a bit as well.
Right. Thank you.
All right, sorry.
So,
Just, oh, go ahead, Kevin.
I can wait my turn if I was out of
Nope.
turn, or
Nope,
could keep going.
keep going.
So I haven't been supportive of preserving all the schools, and that's not a secret, over what's in the best interest of the district. I understand the political ramifications of that Dave alluded to. I also understand, or I believe Levinson's report came out and said that merging the two districts on a school level and a central office level has the greatest benefit, both from student outcomes and from a financial point of view. And nothing else comes close to that. If, and it's a big if you adopt a unified district format, if you will. And then he went on to say, in order to make it successful, to get past the Mount A concerns, is to, deal with the closure issue by a town vote. So in my opinion, I think we shouldn't be separating the town vote and the unified district, because if we go through and say, okay, we're going to push for a town vote, but we're going to go through this decentralized structure that won't amount to significant incomes or much of a cost savings, we're not doing ourselves any favor. We need to have a structure in place that can operate across the whole districts in a uniform manner, much for the advantages that 73 put together Mount Abe district, that has its people that are naysayers and those that are proponents. But you need that kind of a structure to unify the feeder schools into a junior and high school system, and you just aren't going to ever get that without a unified district. So I think I don't think we want to depart from the wisdom of Nate Levinson and his recommendations when we start thinking about this. And personally, I think I could come around to saying, yeah, the two go together and I can support it. I don't think I could say, I'm all for school closure, but we're going to do some decentralized thing to make it look like we're doing something, but doesn't really amount to much. So I don't know if I could support that as a merger study committee member, if any of that makes sense.
Good. Thank you. All right, Rob.
Yeah, I won't get into all my thoughts on the MSC merger study committee, but I guess one thing that has been pretty problematic and frustrating to me is the fact we just haven't heard from the merger study committee in regards to our 4 board members. And I understand, Kevin, what you're saying statutorily, but going into this, like we had talked about, that we'd hear from you all who are on the merger study committee in our board meetings, and we haven't. That's been really disappointing. And I know that you, Kevin, have very different opinions than, I'll just say, Brad. And that would be great to hear as a board member. It's due diligence. I mean, the work that you're doing may have this board table cease to exist. And if we are not informed about the work that you all are doing, and hear directly from you, I think we've missed the mark in what we originally intended this, collaboration with Addison Northwest to sort of look like. I have been really frustrated with the, I've watched all meetings now, with the approach that the facilitator has taken. It seems to me that it's just a singular path to a unified district. And, the biggest vote that I ever regret as a board member is voting for the 706. I did not realize, that one was the wool over my eyes in regards to how narrow of a view that approach takes to looking for efficiencies. I think what I heard from the Nate Levinson report is we have an opportunity to take a phased approach. And this merger to me is not a phased approach. It is all ships heading in one direction. And if there hasn't been anything we've learned from unification in our own district, having 10 communities with fewer seats at the table, I don't quite know how that's going to go over too well in regards to issues in both districts that I think that both have faced since unifying. So I would love to hear from you guys more moving forward. Every meeting or at least once a month, sort of an update where you're at in regards to certain things. And and that would better inform, to get back to the original sort of intent of, does this board need to advocate in regards to sort of an article of agreement regarding school closure? We've heard that from community members, not necessarily from merger study committee members, which is great, but that only is one side of a coin. But I think it would be well in our purview and wise if we do want to go forward and utilize the savings and possible better benefits for our students in regards to this exercise actually producing something worthwhile and not just sort of a big waste of time, that we need to advocate that there is an article of agreement regarding school closure. And I would think people in Addison Northwest would feel the same way. I mean, what happens when you say Virgins High School no longer exists and you don't give people a chance to vote on that? I don't think that's going to go over very well if that article of agreement is not put forth. I mean, there are articles of agreement already written, which is problematic in my mindset in regards to the process. But I think we just really need to hear from you all more. And I think as a board, like if there are things that we are doing in our district, not only right now, but utilizing the Nate Levinson report, and we need to advocate for those at that merger study committee table, in my opinion. So that's where I'm at the moment. Got a lot more things, but it'd be better if all board members that are on the merger study committee are here to hear.
Hey, Liz, thank you.
I think that I've started listening to the Virgins school board meetings lately, and at their next meeting, they're going to discuss the merger committee. And I look forward to us having more conversations and getting to know them. One thing I've really enjoyed about being on this board is getting to know all of our towns. And when strengths are identified and excellencies that are happening across our towns come up, that's what makes me excited to work together. That's what makes me excited to share classrooms and hallways and parking lots and soccer teams and all of the above. So when I hear or read anything that says, wow, this is something really great we've got going on, that's what makes me excited to work with them. And then we have the job of identifying some weaknesses And that's also been happening. I think we're aware of weaknesses that there are across the districts. And for me, you know, if I look back and I think about how this idea that things, by not consolidating, we're keeping things the same is not accurate for me. In fact, I think that if we did, we'd be more likely to give our students opportunities that reflect opportunities that I had. I had tech ed in junior high. I had a Spanish class offered to me at Bristol Elementary School. I had a lot of things offered when I went to school here, and those things are not on the table at the moment because they can't be. So I don't. I get a little confused sometimes by the way that we're thinking about issues. Also, so I'd like to think about Virgins in that way. I'd like to say, hey, what are our strengths? We, as a one voice, have decided that we would like an individual town vote and before school is closed. So that's what we should advocate. That's a strength. That's a strength that we have. They have, you know, I would consider a strength that they offer a choice amongst the elementary schools. You know, they should bring, I'd like to know what their strengths are, and I like those brought to the table. So this is a way for us to say these are things that are excellence, and then and that we would like to promote being a part of a unified union that have worked for us. And then what are some of those weaknesses, and how can we use our strengths to overcome those weaknesses? Transportation, and I think that's going to need another conversation, because the study that was done included the idea that every single student in the district was going to ride the bus, because that's how they have to do the study in order to assume every student is served. So the times that we saw, and we know that even people can live a block away, and we know high schoolers drive to school. So the transportation times that were presented were absolutely the longest times that there could possibly be, and plenty of people will be driving their children, and those bus drives will be shorter than they were presented as, and less expensive. And Sarah had an awesome idea that I think is relevant. So that, you know, that we've got 2 buses that show up at Elementary School, more than 2, but 2 at least, I believe. And then a kid gets on the appropriate bus. You just take that regular ride you have right now to your elementary, and then you either go to the middle school or the high school right from your elementary school. That's a shortener, or you could even maybe stay on that bus and go to a different elementary school, perhaps. Just like people decide it's worth the extra 15 minutes in order to get to the Hanford Career Center. So I think there's a ton more to discuss. I'm really grateful for the Merger Study Committee, and they have questioned our interest in being involved with them, and that is disappointing for me. So yes, we have a diverse board, and we have different levels of interest in being involved with them, absolutely. But I would at least like to be somebody that's saying, I really like that idea, and I look forward to it, and I look forward to learning more about them. And perhaps I look forward to seeing what they'll say at their next meeting as they discuss how they're feeling about working with us.
Thanks, Liz. Kevin?
So I just want to comment back that the Merger Study Committee, every meeting does all I can think is highlights, but they do a meeting summary that becomes briefs, yeah. That becomes an official document that's distributed, and it could, and I would certainly be willing to talk, and I'm sure Dave or Sarah or would be willing to talk about that brief and maybe a perspective at a board meeting, but I believe it would have to be an agenda item. And then the other thing that was a little disturbing, some of the previous comments, and I stated it, and to me, it shouldn't be clear enough that Nate, when he talked about the unified district merger, it was the merger and the vote went together. It wasn't one or the other. And I don't think we should be losing sight of that as a board.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Krista?
Yeah, so it sounds like we're not ready for lots of different reasons to take a straw poll on any kind of recommendation to the merger study committee. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the deliberateness of this group. There are some community members that have been advocating for us to make a recommendation or a statement for a while. But there's a lot that we need to talk through, including the closure article, but other aspects of the committee. And I look forward to those conversations. I think that, to me, even if this is the best idea with the best possible outcomes, if we don't get the opportunity to flesh through some of these sticking points for this board and for our community, I don't think it'll have a chance of succeeding. And so I'm a proponent of looking more closely at all of those different pieces. And I'm reminded of what we did with the community proposals. And I think it's, in my mind, a really similar process. There were a lot of unanswered questions on a lot of different pieces that folks wanted to know more about. Everything from where kids should be for middle school to transportation, to all these different pieces. And I think it's been of benefit to all of us to have gone through that work with Nate to learn more about those parts and pieces. And I think, even if we're not working with a consultant like Nate, to have the chance to more fully understand what a merger would look like and the components of that is going to be of benefit to everybody. And so I guess I'm reminding myself and this board and our community that very recent past precedent shows that we can and will look at those things deeply, so we all understand them and can advocate for what we think makes the most sense. And that might mean that we need more time.
Thank you.
Speaking of time.
Yes, it's 9 o'clock. It's time to move on since we're going to take a straw poll. So let's go on to our public comment. We have a couple of community members left. All right, I'm not seeing anybody interested in making a public comment. So the next item was communication key points for board meeting highlights. Just an opportunity for us to throw out ideas about what should be in a communication to the community about this particular meeting, what things are valuable to share with our community. Kristen is our communications chair, but secretary, but she's not here, so we're going to try and get that together and get it out. So I don't know if you just want to throw out something that happened tonight that you think is important to share again. Andrew?
Just a general conversation about how to spread out the work of the board to various members or consideration of additional committees.
Okay. All right. Anyone else having a thought, a key point? Steve?
I'd like to thank Susan for her service in her former role and wish her best of luck in her new role.
All right, we'll get that in there.
So I think it's noteworthy. We had our annual meeting tonight, as well as you can do that on Zoom. And, you know, Andrew mentioned the meeting mechanics, but I think it's also important that we highlight an ongoing discussion about linkage with staff and the merger study, and started getting our feet wet. Or we discussed our role with the merger study committee, which would basically see E, F, and G discussions. I think all those are very noteworthy.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Anybody interested in writing this up?
I've
Rob?
got one more thing, Don. I think would thank board members for their service who either might not be on the board next go around or who will not be on the board next go around.
Yep.
Some folks have been at the table for a really, really long time. And even if it hasn't been a decade plus, it's been a really, really long and hard time, even if it's just a couple terms. So just thanking those folks. Thank you guys.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. All right, that's some points. Okay, so Chris, are you able to run us through the meeting evaluation? I do have one quick question. Patrick, did they win? They won, huh?
They did. It was the closest 24-point win I've ever witnessed. It felt like it was close the whole game, and then it just ended up at the end. And proud dad moment. I'll get to brag. My daughter tied the school record for most threes in a game.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Whoa.
Nice. I'm glad you got to be there then, especially
Yeah.
glad.
Me too. Thank you.
All right, Chris, are you ready?
I'm ready. You guys
Okay.
ready?
Think
All
so.
right, we'll wrap this up. What is the level of engagement of all board members, high or low? High. Just so you know, I've already answered all these questions. I'm just seeing if you agree. So we'll go from there. Was the agenda followed? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Any comments? Okey doke. Does the chair effectively establish the agenda and materials for distribution to the board? Yes or no?
Yes.
Any comments?
We hope to give her more help on that soon.
Is the chair effective in fostering a professional culture regarding fair and open deliberation, full participation of all members, and ensuring the integrity of the board process? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Any comments?
Couldn't be better.
Other feedback for the chair?
Good timing on the meeting. Only 6 minutes over.
What went well with the meeting? See above.
Yes.
Ditto.
What suggestions do you have for ways to improve future meetings? Nothing. Okay, that's it.
All right, just need a motion to adjourn.
I think you should.
So
do it.
moved.
Come on, Andrew. You've been.
Yeah, Andrew.
Oh, yeah, Andrew.
So moved.
Take it, baby.
Andrew. Is there a second?
Second.
Steve, all right, all those in favor of adjourning at 9:06, please give a thumbs up or say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Thank
Good
you,
night, everyone.
Andrew.
Thank
Thanks,
you, everybody.
Andrew.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.